Hello, and welcome to another episode of Northside Now. This is a podcast where we take you on a tour through all the ministries and latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. My name is Kevin, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Glenn Miller. Hey, Glenn, how's it going this week?
Well, going good. How about y'all?
Doing all right. I think everybody's healthy in our house, so that's good.
Yeah, that is good. It's funny. We had a little resurgent with some of the young kids and with some COVID again.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's still wandering around.
Yeah, well, and we talked last episode about COVID and kids and stuff. And man, we still have hanging on issues.
Yeah.
I mean, physically they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. But headaches and the concentration stuff, like I talked about, is really a big issue. And when your job, quote unquote, is studying in school.
Yeah, when you're a student.
I mean, it becomes really pretty difficult to do your job.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of them have jobs too.
Sure.
And that's can be a challenge sometimes. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm just glad my job isn't studying all the time anymore.
That's right.
I kind of wish my job was just recess all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're out on the pickleball court, it kind of is recess.
Pickleball is picking up here at Northside. I mean, we started it. We knew it was going to have to grow, and it is growing like crazy.
That's good. Do you have somebody? I know we're pretty much open almost every day. Do you have somebody coming in most of those times, or still openings?
No, we do. There's still some openings, of course, but we're having a few people come in every day. On the day we're recording this, there's a gym full out there.
Right.
So there, I think just every time, and what they keep telling me is when it gets colder.
Oh, I bet.
When it gets colder, get ready because you're going to get swamped.
Yeah, so, I believe that's true.
So, but yeah, it's been fun to find out, pickleball's been around for a long time, and it seems so brand new to me.
I know, until a few years ago when my aunt broke her wrist, I think, playing. I had never even heard of it before.
Yeah, me either. I mean, Barbie's like, I did it in elementary school or junior high.
I know. I guess I'm so sheltered. I don't know.
I guess me too. I was too busy playing something else. I don't know.
Right.
Well, we have a fun one today.
We have got a great interview to share with everybody. And we probably want to preface it first. It's Judge Christy Little. The judge is coming.
Here come the judge.
Here come the judge. But she talks about some, she's really completely honest and shares some really the stuff that's tough to hear.
Yeah.
I think about
our community.
About our community, what it's like to be a judge.
Yeah.
A little bit. And I found myself as I was listening to this really kind of, at some points, hopeless.
Yeah.
Like what can we do?
Yeah.
And one of the things she'll talk about is, she's really passionate about, is trying to intervene when kids are young.
Yeah.
That you have a greater chance of helping them be better adults if you can get to them young. And so, fascinating conversation. I mean,
it reminded me, it's something she says, and just kind of as it started going, it just reminded me of the old story where the little boy is picking up and throwing back starfish into the ocean. Yeah. And an old guy comes along and says, "Why are you doing that? It's not going to do any good. It doesn't matter to anybody." The little boy bends over, picks up another starfish and tosses it out in the water and goes, "It mattered to that one." Mm-hmm. And so it matters to the ones. And she does talk about that. And leave the 99 and go for the one, the one that left home and came back.
That's right.
And go get the fatted calf. Let's have a party, all of those things that we learn in scripture. She's applying those things to everyday, hard, ugly, messy stuff.
Yep.
And, hats off to her. Do you think you could do that?
No.
You think? I don't know.
I think it'd be really, really challenging on so many levels.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the frustrations and the challenges we've had as adoptive parents, and it feels like just the kind of the tip of the iceberg compared to all that she sees on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And so hats off to all of those people that are called into that role.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
It's definitely not an easy thing, and it's not a safe job. And it's really pretty challenging. I think it's sobering to hear a lot of what she shared.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a reality check for probably all of us.
Yeah.
You are involved with kids, all walks of life. And so you're aware of a lot of the things she talks about. But when you talk about things like gangs, you talk about things where kids have never had a birthday.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah. It really sort of brings home that how are we supposed to be? I mean, we're a part of our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And while maybe some of us live in neighborhoods that are extremely safe and a certain level of income, et cetera, what's our responsibility as members of our community, of our town, of our country? Granted, we all have our own things going on.
Sure.
Lots of our own family challenges or just whatever it's work or whatever it is that we have to deal with on a daily basis. But how can we be a bigger part of our community?
Yeah. And another thing, and I've thought about this not too long ago, is there are people who do crime. I almost wanted to say choose crime. Yeah. And I guess there'd be people who would argue that's what they do. But a lot of times they have families. And they have children, and those children didn't ask for this to happen. You know, and I told Barbie one time on something completely different, but it was a little bit similar, is no one thinks about the bad guys' kids. You know, they always think about the heroes' kids or the victims' kids or whatever, but no one really thinks about the bad guys' kids or bad girl or bad human's kids or whatever. And, you know, Christy says they're not bad, but the bad behaving ones.
Right.
So, you know, and that's tough, you know, so sometimes these kids just get completely caught in all kinds of situations. And, you know, that's the reason we need the foster family situations. We need the foster homes. We need the sunshine home and those things. And so bless her that we're doing these things in this community. And we want y'all to listen, and hopefully and prayerfully the Spirit will move in you to help be a piece of someone's adventure in throwing starfish back. Well, we're here today with Judge Christy Little.
Oh, just Christy today.
No,
but I appreciate that.
We were telling everybody the judge was coming.
Here come the judge.
What do you think about the podcast room, don't you?
I think
this
is ducky. As well, that's the old word, but I think it's really, and I really do honestly miss Bill Way, and we used to do a lot of radio things. It has that same, I don't care where you are, whether you're in the building over at, you know, where 101.5 was years ago, or you're recording a studio gig at Chuck McGill's singing through a pair of pantyhose as your puffer. You know, anytime you have a microphone and headphones and you know people are listening, it is like big time showtime here.
It is.
It's very glamorous.
I love a radio, and I have a good face for radio. Bill Way had a better face for radio. My husband has a cute face for radio.
Well, he does.
He's
so sweet.
He does.
Well, thanks for coming. We've wanted to have you for a while, and just had to kind of work the time out, and because you are busy, a lady. So.
Well, as my daughter Claire says, I'm not happy if I'm not busy with 4 different things going on, multitasking. If I'm not multitasking, I'm either sick or I'm depressed because I don't have something to do. And I was always told when I was practicing law, because I said I never can get caught up.
Yeah.
And so the older lawyer, Melvin Rowland in the firm, said, if you ever get caught up, you're not a lawyer anymore. And I thought, that is true. So I think both you and Kevin understand getting caught up is not in our near future.
Right.
No.
I mean, I intend to do that someday, but right now there's too many things to be done in this community to stop.
Yeah. What do you want to be when you grow up? Caught up.
Yeah. I had always said I wanted to sell Clinique at Macy's, and then they did away with Macy's. So, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up now.
I understand. So you are our juvenile judge.
General Sessions.
So I do.
Judge. Right. But everybody, and I'm proud of the juvenile part of it because Judge Harris started that tradition. But I actually do, I say the deadbeat, the delinquent, and anything that can drag in. So I'm the quadruple D. But basically I do the probate. So if someone in your family passes away and they need to have their wills probated, I'm your person. I have private jurisdiction over that. So I do those on Mondays and morning, afternoon dockets, and then Thursday mornings. I do the small claim civil, the Judge Judy, get out my way. Well, actually, she's calmed down a bit, I think, after now that she's retired and come back. But Judge Harvey and myself, Division 1, Division 2, we split that. He does the docket, so he gives me the, quote, good cases, the dog bites, the transmissions, all those. So I do those on Mondays. Okay. And I always have to be the one to tell someone they have to leave on Christmas Eve. You're kicked out of your house. Yeah. But I always give them more time because they have 10 days. But I always get the ones nobody else really wants to hear. And then usually those end up being the ones that we still laugh about. Those are the ones probably we get the most laughs out of.
Yeah.
We take every case seriously, but it's kind of hard when you've had a detention hearing on a first-degree murder case, and then someone walks in with their dog and says they don't like the way they did their hysterectomy. Makes it a little bit interesting. It's hard to kind of get your act. You have to kind of take a deep breath. And then I do the abuse and neglect cases, and I do the child support. Thursday is Baby Daddy Day, we call it.
Yeah.
It's not very appropriate, but it is. We do the DNA testing on site now.
Oh, okay.
We've been doing that for probably 10 years. Right now we're calling it COVID docket, because all these babies are now the ones that at 9 months, we're seeing lots of interesting names. Rona, Devoc, COVID spelled backwards. Just interesting. And we do on site now because we can get the test back so much quicker.
Yeah.
And then we also on Fridays do the Contempt Days, which is go to jail or pay day. And then in between we do detention hearings. Any child that's arrested has the right to have a hearing within 72 hours. And then we also do, I also have to do removals of children, sadly. And now under the new statutes, actually the DCS regs, if a child or children or sibling family is coming into foster care now, it requires a judge's signature.
Wow.
That never happens during the day.
Yeah.
A meth lab gets raided. Usually they've come from me to sign the search warrant. I say, how many, am I going to have children in this one? And most of the time they put the head down and I'm like, okay, so I'll be waiting on a call. So then, they have to get an order from me if they can't find a family member. So that plus I do mental health court if Pathways opens back up with their mental health, where you have, like Western State, you have to have those hearings to determine if there's still a threat to self or others. That's why I picked the gig, because I like diversity, number one. I like to be able to see different things.
Sure, yeah.
And also, I get to see where it starts, and, in between that, we run many programs through Juvenile Court Services. So we have lots of programs, lots of grants that have to be written, things that have to be done. Everybody goes, can I meet with you on a day you don't have court? Well, that'd be Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
Because, unless I'm at conference or I'm supposed to be on my 35th wedding anniversary trip, but that's wah.
Yeah.
So besides that, I'm, as I say, sitting laying eggs, basically sitting there waiting for people to come in.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of the gist of General Sessions Division 2 as it stands.
And I didn't realize you did all the extra other things.
That's a lot. I didn't either.
Because I really just know you more in that role of the juvenile court judge.
I would say Juvenile Court Services does the bulk of the getting everything ready for court. I mean, they do all that, but we just have so many different things going that, and obviously that's more in the public eye right now, and has always been, and always, in my opinion, will be for years to come. Whereas if you have a death in your family, that's a very private thing. I try to make that very solemn. Nobody, in the courtroom, unless they have a reason to be. Those can be some of the most controversial. Some of them, controversial is the word. Someone will come in and say, "I'm a child," and all the family's going, "No, you're not," and prove it. And then they want to dig the body up. I've had a bunch of those body diggings, and then they fight over a clock. Or I always know when you got the courtroom, and I always say, "Uh-oh, we got a problem." When they're not sitting together with their arms around each other, Houston, you have a problem. And it's usually one sibling that just isn't going to have it. Didn't like the way they, had mother at the nursing home. Didn't like the way the funeral went. Didn't like, or they want their money and things like that. But those can be sad because it breaks families up, and that's all you got left. 85% of them are walk in, do your paperwork. I don't make them come back, and if they have to sell a property in Tennessee, it's 4 months before you can sell without a court order, because if you owe money to the government, they're going to get it, 10 care, etc. And then they have to just keep that in an estate account. But you have to remind people sometimes about things like their duties, and then the civil cases are. After I hear them, they have 10 days to appeal, and if they appeal, it starts all over again. So it's kind of like Judge Harvey and I have always said, I do take them seriously. I do listen. I do apply the law.
Sure.
But most of the time I get the ones that neither one has an attorney, and that can be really interesting and can probably cause the most fights besides the child support days.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, we don't go a month without a brawl.
Wow.
And sometimes it's in court, sometimes it's in the hall, and most of the time it's out at the car, and then they bring them back in and go, okay, what do you want me to do with this one? Put them in the holding cell.
Yeah. We just recently here at the church had a fair for foster people that are interested in being a foster family.
So excited.
And I believe that you have a house, or you've been working on getting a foster home or foster house. So talk a little bit about that, because it's interesting for our church. And I think the foster fair was one of the first times many of those agencies had been together, kind of in that scenario.
Time.
Yeah.
About time.
So tell us a little bit about the foster home.
And I have to, be careful, because, obviously as an adoptive parent, and as you understand, Kevin, the role of a foster parent, there were foster parents that kept Claire before we adopted her. And, when we got her, they were sobbing. We were sobbing. I mean, they knew they couldn't keep her, but we were so blessed. They were so blessed. So, it takes a very special person to do that job.
Yeah.
And under the rules as they are now, I don't pick foster homes.
Yeah.
I might say this was a really good family, but during COVID, and rightly so, if you got a call in the middle of the night and they said, we had a search warrant, the house was, the home had heroin, the parents are going to jail, and you have everybody's supposedly, you think, healthy at that point in time, it was difficult, and a lot of people dropped off because I know several families that did take children in, and then ended up, one in particular, he almost died as a result, because they took the children and not knowing. And then you also have people who you hear the horror stories, and you have wonderful people who are doing the job. You have to do the background check. You have to go to the PATH classes. If you really want to do it, you have to go through the line. And if you don't do that, you don't get any stipends for that. If an aunt or an uncle, or even if you're a kinship now, even if you have worked with that child as a youth director, they could place that child with you because you have an extended relationship with that child. The problem, what they don't tell you, which I get on to them about, but DCS is its own entity, is, okay, you're going to get this little girl and boy, but good luck. I mean, you're not going to get a stipend because of what you make. You're not going to qualify for TennCare. You're not going to qualify for food stamps. You're not going to qualify for those services. Good luck. I mean, if you can get them on your insurance, sure. Most of the time, they'll work it out where they can't have health insurance, but Carl Perkins used to do relative caregiver up until a few months ago, and that's been cut out. Before, that would allow someone who could prove that they were a relative. It still wouldn't help you in that scenario. And then when you come back for the 30-day review or the 2-week review, or we have the 72-hour hearing, and then we review to see if they're still in jail or if they've gone to rehab or whatever. And then they come in and they go, look, we adore these children, but we need assistance. And right now, all I can tell them is Carl Perkins is not doing it unless you're a relative. And then it's, okay, uprooting the children to another place, but breaking your heart because they end up in a foster care home, and sometimes not together. Most of the time they try to, but if you've got a sibling group of 7, which we always have same lucky 7, they're everywhere. That changes the whole placement. I do believe a child, when they're removed, must be with somebody, or the best scenarios, they can be with somebody that they know. And obviously, you'd have to go through the checks and all that. Well, not necessarily training so much as just the checks, the background checks and the home study. You have room, food, clothing, shelter. You're not on the sex offender registry, all that, The problem with fostering is that it's gotten a stigma too, which we have to overcome. Some people just aren't cut out for it. I couldn't do it. I mean, I see a puppy dog on TV, I'm ready to call and adopt. And comparing that, people, it's like, oh, this is such a cute little baby. This is great. Well, that baby was subjected to cocaine in utero, and they come out and they're going to cry for 6 days in a row. And they come to court after the second time, and it's like their hair's all messed up. The baby looks, cute and good, but they're like, I can't do my job. I can't work. I can't do this. But there are some people that can just handle it. They understand the goal initially, always, unless it's the mother or father has already had children removed from them in the past, or there was severe abuse, or they have a criminal sentence longer than, whatever the criteria is. The goal at the beginning of the removal is that they go home. Mm-hmm. So you take that child or children knowing you're going to have to work with that parent, visits, whatever you have to do. So that's quite an undertaking to ask. And then they do get paid in different agencies, pay different amounts. And then you go through and you might have 3 or 4 that are doing great, one that's not doing so well. You're spending all your time with that child. Mm-hmm. What do you do? And then DCS is so understaffed, bless their hearts. Yeah. And they're doing the best they can. But, any little thing that comes up, you can't just call and go, gosh, we need. It's like, if you're not a go-getter like these people that you met, the foster group that was with you, if you're not go-getters and you're not just willing to just take the bull by the horns, do what you got to do, understanding that you're not doing it for the money. And it became a money game for a while, years ago. Yeah. We kind of got past all that. Now we're just in need of people who are willing to open their hearts and their homes to children of all ages. Obviously, if it's a personal thing or something that you just simply can't deal with, you have the right to say. It's not like you're on the foster list and they go, we're coming tonight with babies. You can say, no, I'm not in a position. We're getting ready to go on a vacation. It's a huge need, which required us then, back to that question, which I rambled. The summer house, which everybody thought was my summer home, and I went, I don't have a summer home. I have a place at the river, but because I kept saying the summer house. Mm-hmm. Well, my grandmother lived at 201 Summer, and so the hospital, after we sold it, obviously bought it. They tore it down, but they let me go get all the daffodils and everything. Oh, cool. So the next house, which was Miss Whitmire's, who was a nurse and a beloved soul, we would go over and play at her house. Mm-hmm. So that's the first house you come to. And so I spoke at Rotary about the fact that, and this was the scenario for the past probably 8 months or so, was any child coming in would at least spend one night in the DCS office on the floor, on this kind of floor that we're on now, which is the hard floor, and no bath, so you can't decontaminate yourself. Yeah. They were just had their little game things or whatever they had, and they were spending nights in the DCS office. Well, for a while I didn't know, but then one time I went over there and I see kids everywhere, and I'm like, is this the daycare or is this the office? So I finally inquired. Judges started to inquire. I'm on the executive committee for juvenile judges, and we found out it was all over the state. Oh, wow. Well, in East Tennessee, they have Isaiah's House, which is a nonprofit group that we call it a respite home, where they can stay until either a family member, we might have a family member in Wyoming that says, I'll take these children, a grandparent, but you're going to have to give me a couple days. Because, I got to get the house ready. I have got to do this. Well, what they were doing is just putting them in foster care. So that makes no sense to me. Right, sure. So they came to DCS Commissioner, and then Nichols, now we have a new commissioner, came to me and said, is there any place, and she suggested our church, because churches do a lot in Middle Tennessee, and I said, our church is always open to everything, but we have room in the inn, we have classes. I said, there's no way we can separate, and you never know from one day to the next if you're going to have 10 kids or one, if it's going to be a baby or whatever. And so I spoke to Rotary, and J.R. Ross, God bless him, from West Tennessee Healthcare, said, they buy up those homes for people who are taking cancer treatments from Kirkland Cancer Center, and they're coming from another county. They can stay. There's houses all around the hospital. Okay, cool. And if they're hospice and they're from out of town, they'll let the family stay there for free. Okay. So they were fixing that house up, because it was right across from Kirkland, for families to come, or even if they needed to stay one night after their treatments because they were sick, and bring it back. And he said, it's yours. Oh, wow. We'll pay the electricity. And so Steve and I and the county and different ones, we tricked it out. You don't want it too bougie. But we've got all kinds of cool stuff in there. Like Well, we did the twin beds, and then we did some bunk beds. Kids love bunk beds. Teepees, and then we did one room that was like for older boys. And then Sheriff Weiser gave us some money he had from his campaign, and we've got a basketball goal. We've got that cornhole, but I want to learn the pickleball thing.
Yeah,
and because the kids I've talked to that I go over there, they're like, we get tired of staying inside, so we ramified that by just rectified, wrong word, that by putting things outside for them. And last 2 nights ago, we had 4 sibling groups, and then last night we have 3 from 3 down in there. And today, when I leave here, a group from Franklin, Tennessee is coming. They've already got several houses picked out. They just want to see, some of the pitfalls and the things we found. Like you don't give everybody a key, you do the pads, you change the codes, just tricks of the trade. And they're going to go back from here today and buy 1 or 2 of those homes with a church-funded 501c3, and they're going to open theirs because they're getting a lot of overflow from Nashville. But ours serves basically anything west of the river with the exception of Shelby County. So these children that are in the home now may or may not be from Madison County. They may be from Perry County or Henderson County, wherever. But I would like for our church to consider a month project, our mission project. People have been so good at, and we're so grateful, but hygiene, wintertime, we need coats for these children. I mean, they come in sometimes with nothing.
Right.
And suitcases, I know we do that for room in the inn. They all come in with the big black bags. I want them to leave with something. I want to give every child a blanket. It's called the Summer House. May you be warm, safe, and blessed. And I have a tag that we put in the blankets that I have, but I wanted every child to leave with, when they come in, they get a blanket. When they leave, they can at least take them wherever it is they're going. So I need some help with blankets that are babies up to 17, newborns to 17, and people who could help me do the tags and sew them in so they take that with them. Plus, you just realize I've forgotten how much it takes to feed a 16-year-old boy. So anyway, I'm overtaking the podcast, but I'm so excited about the fact that we were able to provide that without having to, taxpayer money. No tax.
Awesome.
It's done. And there is confidentiality as to children that are there. They have their caseworkers with them. We're not asking anybody to come volunteer, but if somebody wants to cook food for them, great.
Oh, cool.
I mean, because they get gift cards where they can get the food, because otherwise they love to do the microwavable mac and cheese, all the stuff you do with the youth group. We used to do the, mac and cheese, and all. I mean, we can get real creative, but every now and then just some good old lasagna. That's good stuff, So anyway, so I would like to see us do that as a month long. I have the list, things that go faster. Diapers. Oh, yeah. Can't reuse them.
That's right.
That's true.
So, right now we've got 3 little ones at the house, so we're going through lots of diapers.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's great. Yeah, we'd definitely get us that list.
So that we could
throw that out there for sure.
Anything non-perishable. But if you'll notice, I don't know if you've ever looked on like the mac and cheese, the shelf life on those is not very long. I mean, I've started really looking at that. Because if you don't use it, you don't want to waste it. But we have the ability for 3 bedrooms, a bath, and then a queen sofa. And then we have a long table so they can all eat their meals together, kitchen, all that.
That's cool. So, one of the things that I know you and I talked a little bit before, as we were kind of getting ready for the podcast, is there's an obvious crime situation with young people in our community. And all the communities around us as well. And we know there's gangs and have been gangs for a long time. But
live under a rock if you think there's not.
They are definitely active, and even active in the neighborhoods here around the church and things. You had told me, something like 95% of the cases you see that are really severe deal with mental health issues. And you see, a lot of our young people who participate in crime that, especially violent crime, those kinds of things, they almost all have a mental health situation. What? How can we address that in our community? And how can, like a church or individuals come alongside of the law enforcement community to help make that better. And I feel like sometimes we program everything to death. Is there something beyond just a program or a grant or something? Is there something that is tangible that the person can do?
You know, number one, if people think Blue Oval City is not going to affect us, they're dead wrong. Everybody said, oh, it's going to be fine. Wrong. You're going to be bringing in people from larger communities, and all that's going to do is bring in, I'm not saying that all the people that are going to be in the upper echelons, children or gang members, but I'm saying with it comes employees that they're going to bring. And we have the Avalon Crips, we have the Vice Lords, we have Lincoln Court Posse, which is an inset of the Vice Lords. We have all these groups, and most of the time they don't have a male role model. Parental supervision is almost zero. They find a group that says, man, we can make you money. We love you, man. We're going to do all this. Yeah. And so to the gang thing, yes, we have that. And if people don't go ahead and let us prepare for what's to come, we're going to have an even worse issue, because there's going to be more problems as we see our communities, even around our communities, because everybody comes to Jackson to shoplift.
Sure.
Where are you going to shoplift in Brownsville? I mean, at the Dollar General, but you're going to come to Jackson and shoplift. So we're seeing a lot of that. When we did the paperwork to request funding for the Jim Henry Center for mental health patients, which we have yet to hear from 2 years later, they still tell us we're in the running. I'm like, my horse is already back at the thing ready for its fifth. But we've already done the Triple Crown. We're ready for we're just ready to go to Hot Springs. You know? We did, went back 10 years on all the children that I had to transfer to adult court. And as you know, I always say they're the murder cases, the almost murder cases, the horrible rape cases, a little bit of all of that in between that meet the criteria. 99% of every child that I transferred, 99, all but one child had an Axis 1 mental health diagnosis, either bipolar, schizophrenia, autism, something that absolutely, for the most part, went untreated.
Wow.
Now, you know, if your child has a mental health issue, I think the problem with that is people see that as, how in the world am I going to get services for my child? Because it's not easy.
No.
And we don't make it easy. You have to go to one place to get to see a counselor, to do an intake. Everybody thinks they're going first to see somebody. They do an intake. Then they have to go back. Well, then they need a med evaluation to see if they need medication. Well, they want to consult with the LCS, you know, the social worker. Well, then you find out they don't have an IEP. They don't have a behavioral plan. And the doctor's going, what? And usually most all of them have either a learning disability or they are dyslexic and it's gone unnoticed, or they had drug exposure, have issues with learning, basically. And then we have the same old thing with the hyperactive ADHD, which in the old days was get a spanking and sit down. But now everybody says that, and I'll go, but it's so different now if you could just watch it. But what can we do? Well, the plan that we have is a one-stop shop, and that you get them when they're young. If you wait till the child is 16 years old and they walk in my courtroom and they've committed a murder, there's not really a whole lot that our court can offer them. If they're 4 years old, I went and toured a mental health facility a few years ago, and I still can't get the picture out of my mind. There was a 4-year-old little girl in there. And they said she will be in here long term and will probably be institutionalized, which we don't do much, for the rest of her life because of things that happened to her when she was a baby, and also mental health and some other issues that, you know, that had occurred to her. So I said, we all sat down and said, okay, we're going to look at ages 4 to 14. If we can get them, the school, you know, my sister taught pre-K for years. My daughter's teaching in a public school. You know, as a teacher, and you know, Kevin Laurie knew as a teacher that even in pre-K, okay, you can say, okay, this child's probably going to be valedictorian, and these 3 right here are either going to be dead, or they're going to be in prison, or they're going to be in the court system as soon as they're old enough to go. Because they don't have the family involvement and they have something going on. Now, I mean, and I'm not trained to be a mental health person, but I've gotten to where now I can say, I think that child has schizophrenia because they're telling me, the voices are telling them to do this.
Yeah.
Well, duh. Okay, why haven't we checked that?
Yeah.
So our goal is to get referrals from abuse and neglect cases, because we all know children that have some history, you know, in their past, usually have PTSD, an attachment disorder. Then you work with the school system so they can say, okay, this pre-K child, we've done what we can do. We need some intervention. And then you get with, obviously with us, with the courts, because the parents can file unruly petitions. Then what we do is, in the building, which we're going to either build in our detention center, but we were hoping to have a separate building. It's a one-stop shop. You come there, you go to see your counselor. We're working with Pathways. They have a probably nurse practitioner who's able to go ahead and say, okay, you know, this child's really young, but we need to go ahead and maybe start a low dose of Adderall or some whatever you give now, so that they can sit in their seat. So by the time they get to first grade, they're where they need to be. If you know, if it's ADHD, if it's other issues, then we address them. But the parents are also required. We call it mental health court, like we're doing safe baby court, where I have a magistrate who sees them starting out once or twice a week, and we pay for them to get to our building. And that's all they got to do. Yeah. And basically, you know, parents, did you take your meds? Then parents have to get a mental health assessment, because 9 times out of 10, they got something going on. I've always said this, and some people disagree with me, but I don't think people have alcohol and drug issues first. I think they have mental health issues first. And in order to fix those voices or fix that depression, they drink, they do drugs, they do whatever they have to do. Fix the mental health part of these parents. You may help them also. But if they're not willing to sign up, but I would think, you know, at the point where their child's already having issues, they would do that. And then if the child has a relapse, which they will, and need to go for treatment, we have an agreement with Pathways that they would help us get them in a placement, even if it's for 4 weeks to get their new meds. It takes two weeks to get the meds in your system. And if they just have a breakdown at 12 and just puberty hits, and all of a sudden things go south, and the parents kind of slack, then you've got that. The school system would come to us. We would do the IEPs there. We would do the behavioral plans there. We would do the testing. If you tell a parent, okay, your child needs an IEP, they just look at me with the blanks there. I'm like, okay, that means you've got to put in writing, not just ask, put in writing to get it to the right person at the school system, and then wait. And if you don't bug them, not that they're not doing their job, they've just got so many. But if we make it easier for them, come to us, parents will be there, we'll have all our players there. You come, we do this. The goal would be by the time the child gets to the point where gangs and other, because they prey on the weak and the mental health cases and the ones who don't have the family involvement. By the time you get them to teenage, and even if they get to 14 and they still need our assistance, then certainly we want to make sure we don't want to let them go and then get off their meds, not do what they're supposed to do. But you look at that younger group, if you don't catch the problem while they're young, they're going to end up on drugs. They're going to end up in the court system on a serious offense. Look at the 2 that just got arrested. You look in their eyes and there's nothing there. I mean, I sit and look in court at these young, mostly African-American males, some Caucasian males, some the females, they just cry and scream and holler and start pulling hair. But the boys, you look in their eyes and there's nothing there. And I'm like, there's got to be a mental health problem. And I guarantee you both of those, the 2 Memphis incidents, theirs went back for years. So who let them down? Why is this lady not running every morning like she usually does? Well, you know, people always say, well, it's not our problem. It is our problem. You know, they always say, you just want to, you know, hug them and love them and all that. And I'm like, well, first of all, juvenile court, the statute says we are to rehabilitate and treat. I cannot punish. So people all been out of shape about that. And I'm like, I raised my hand a few weeks ago before the big COVID came and said I would do that. I would follow the Constitution and the laws of the state of Tennessee to the best of my ability according to the law, so help me God. And so, you know, I put my hand on the Bible and swore on the Bible that I was going to do that. That's what I do. And people don't really want to get involved with children or with issues with children or put money on children until it's their grandchild, their child.
Right.
And then they call me and go, oh, my child can't stay in your detention center. It's nasty. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not, because y'all say it's great. It's wonderful. And I said, your child's going to stay just like everybody else is if they meet the criteria to stay.
Yeah.
And we're not supposed to be having this conversation. And I thought you were the one who wanted me to lock the child up and give them the death penalty because they stole your ATV. And now you're calling me saying, I want you to let my child go and we'll just work this out. And it's like, it just doesn't work that way. So that's one problem. The other problem is we're going to keep building jails until we put money on the youth. People will say, yeah, that's great, Judge. That's a great idea. And then when I come and say, I need $50 million or $30 million or whatever for a new state-of-the-art detention center and a new mental health program, they go, we don't have the money for that.
Right.
We're not going to do that. Oh, but we're going to put 60-something million on a new jail.
Yeah.
Okay, well, every one of those individuals I know, and they've been through the juvenile system, but you didn't give me what I needed at the time to do what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So, my angst with the powers that be, and I did testify before the Senate Judiciary Ad Hoc Committee 2 weeks ago, that's headed up by Senator Jackson, Senator Wally, and Representative Shaw. So we've got West Tennessee representation.
Yeah.
And what I told them was basically what I'm telling you: put your money where your mouth is. But the one thing we got to have is resources. If you're going to up all these crimes and give them more time and do all these things and build these jails, you're going to also have to in turn give us a chance to try to. And this woman might have been alive. I mean, there's all the what ifs. She might have been alive had he been in jail. He wasn't going to be in jail because he did his 85%. And that's what people don't understand. He did his 85%. He wasn't on parole. He got however many years at 85%. He did it.
Yeah.
He never met parole because he had to do that.
Yeah.
So he was going to be out on that. Now, I don't know about the other. But then you look at his juvenile record. Obviously, somebody in Memphis, somebody wherever he was from when he was a juvenile, missed mental health issues and other issues. But to take up for them, if you don't have the funding to do these things, then you pretty much give them a probation officer. We're blessed to have what we have in Madison County, but if we don't start young, we are doomed. So my answer to the mental health thing is, yes, we have got to deal with it. We got to deal with it much younger.
Yeah.
That's why we have all these, in my opinion, the shootings and the killings is people have mental health issues, and COVID and these other things raise their ugly head and make it worse. Mm-hmm. And everybody that knows any of these people go, well, we knew that they had a problem.
Yeah.
Well, okay, when they were younger, why didn't we do something about it? Well, it goes back to the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
If you go to somebody and say, I need help because I have these children that don't have a home and they really need, they'll pull their money out. I've got these boys that I would like to start the boot camp up again, and we really need some help. And they go, good luck. If they're in trouble and they've done that, they deserve whatever they get. Changing the mentality is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard sell to say you need to help this child that just robbed somebody.
It is, yeah.
But why did he do it? How can we fix it? What do we need to do about it? The problem with juvenile is we don't have money. We don't have caseworkers. We don't have, all that trickles down. Mm-hmm. You don't have somebody watching over them with state probation because they don't have a probation person. What you going to do,
Wow.
So I think that is, in a nutshell, my belief. Now, other people may differ on that, but I've been doing this gig for 35 years, 24 as a judge, and this is my last 8. And I want to leave it better than when I came. Mm-hmm. And we have made such progress as far as what we have in Madison County. Everybody's coming to Madison County to see what we got going on, but they don't have it going on.
Right.
Yeah. So, and Middle and East are the rich counties. Madison County serves all these other counties.
Yeah.
And we don't mind, but it's a matter of funding. In the summer, we have the summer jobs program, keeping them busy. Had, I think, one child that dropped out because he wanted to play football. And every one of them have have done amazingly well. They come back and then speak. It's just amazing the things when we're doing all this stuff, nobody knows about it.
Sure.
But we do it because for the whole summer, we know where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And by the time they get home, they're tired.
Right.
Because they work at nonprofits. So they work for RIFA and
cool.
Air Relief Ministries and Community Cafe. And, they work. No cell phones. We drug test them, at random. And if they have a problem, they call us. We immediately handle it. And so they get money. We have to be careful that their parents don't get their money. If they owe court cost or restitution to a victim, we gradually take it out. But it's a way we try to pick children that owe. We also pick, if their child's in foster care, they can, if they're old enough.
Oh, wow.
And they can have some extra money. If they've been a victim, they can come. So, we do that every summer. We have the county gives 50, the city gives 50,000, and we can serve up to 42 children.
Oh, wow.
So we do that. We've been doing that ever since, they used to do that WIA or some initiative group. When that fell by the wayside about 6 years ago, we just said, well, we're just going to do it ourselves. But Southwest helps us with the paychecks and all that. Leaders Credit Union does the sets them up an account so they don't charge them. They were having to go charge them at quick stops, and they were taking, we went, whoa, time out. Get them a checking account if they want one, but try to help them learn to save. That doesn't always work. It didn't work for me either. I always go talk to them, and I'm like, you really need to save this money. You really do. But don't look at what I owe, because I like shoes and purses. And I don't just sit around and talk about juvenile court. I like to shop, and I like to sing, and I like to do all these normal things. And all that stuff requires you to get your hair done and your nails done and look pretty, or you want to look pretty. And, shoes, you got to have new shoes. You got to have all that. So, I would never teach a class on saving.
Yeah.
Never. I think you figured that out. But I enjoy seeing the fruits of your labor when a Roman comber who is now about to be a physician's assistant sent me his graduation invitation, and he treated Steve on one of his kidney stones when he was trying to kiss the mayor after he had his morphine, and he went through my boot camp 3 times.
Wow, that's cool.
And he writes me, and he's just the kindest,
story.
Most wonderful man, and we're so proud of him.
Yeah.
And everybody says, well, half of them don't ever do. Well, one of them did.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And there's a whole lot more of them that come up to me. So, it's like, why would you ever question God's reasoning for allowing you to do these things when you see the fruits of your labor? Not always great, but most of the time, if you just give them, it's like that one child that wrote me and said, thanks for not giving up on kids like me.
Yeah.
Kids like me.
Yeah.
What is the kid like you? That could be anybody's child.
Sure.
But in his mind, he's been told, you're no good, your daddy in prison, your mama's got 10 other kids, she doesn't act right, you smoke dope. What are you going to be when you grow up? And then you realize that that's what he's been told all his life, is you're no good. Children learn by example. And I've always said, if you tell a child they're bad, they'll prove you right every time.
Yeah.
And these mamas will come in, he's just bad. And I'll go, don't you ever say that in front of me again. Yeah. And don't ever say that to your child. He's the worst one I got of the group. Well, he going to go out and do something bad that night.
Yeah.
If he gets out. In my opinion, Claire, as long as I'm alive, she's my baby.
Sure.
And you've got babies, you got babies.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. We have a society that has grandmamas raising babies and they want to just be grandmamas and great grandmothers now raising babies, people that I went to school with.
Yeah.
And it's become a societal issue. I don't have the answer for that. Yeah. I just think education and working and trying to help, it's like whoever God puts in front of you, that's the one you need to address.
Sure.
So I try to do that in court, but there's a person in not your family, but somebody that God's put in your life that that keeps nagging at you that I need to do a little bit more. And we had a young man we worked with. He never had a birthday cake. Santa came, he was 17 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Just do that and you realize, man, what are we missing out on?
Yeah.
Because it's, our children are so spoiled and I don't know if they expect, but, a birthday cake, heck, if you don't have a birthday cake for Claire now, it's like, a birthday cake is a birthday cake. To somebody who's never had a birthday cake,
it's a big deal.
Oh my goodness gracious! And then you give them a gift. Well, I got a birthday cake.
Yeah.
So I guess my big thing for people is to say, don't give up on our children. Don't give up on our youth. Don't assume every child's going to steal your purse or take your car. Be careful because there are issues.
Yeah, you got to be smart.
You got to be smart, but you also need to know that every one of those children was born innocent, and we need to try and do what we can as a community effort. Don't take it on yourself to fix them. We had the blind side syndrome for a while.
Oh yeah.
Where families would bring in these huge linebacker looking children and go, I'm gonna take him to one of these private schools and they're willing to work with him. I bet you I had 10. And within about either after football season or they got hurt during football season or they got in trouble or something happened with their children. And I'm like, you took this child in. Then they come back and go, we don't want him anymore. Then he goes back on the streets. That just makes it that much worse. But, people don't need to do it because they think, oh, I'm going to get rich and famous and it's going to be fabulous and we're going to go to Ole Miss and life's going to be good and Michael Lord's going to be, right there. And I think that's something we laugh about it because I'll still see him now and I'll go, okay, how long is this one going to last? That's just a funny because it's one of those things where sometimes you have to laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah. One final question for you. Doing what you do for as long as you have, how does your faith play a role in the day in and day out of doing what you do? Because it could get really easy to see that on a daily basis and to hear and watch people do what people do and go home and just throw your hands up in the sky and go, I'm done.
I can tell you I have done that in the past.
Yeah.
I don't see how anyone could be in a judicial role and not be a Christian and not have God. I mean, I pray every morning when I go in to give me the wisdom to do what I'm supposed to do and then to keep my family safe.
Yeah.
And then not technically supposed to, separation of church and state and these grants and all these things. But, I'll say, is it okay if I pray for you? And I've always waited to see if I was going to get in trouble. But I've had a few people say, I don't need you. But then I'll go, well, that's all the more reason why I'm going to do it anyway, whether you say yes or no. I just wanted you to know. Or can I put you on our prayer list? But as a Christian, I think we see things differently. I think it helped. If I didn't have that, I would have already been in an institution.
Yeah.
Now I'm a cynic, as everyone would say. I look at things and can think of 10 reasons why we shouldn't do it, or 10 reasons why this is going to be a problem. And you can ask anybody in my family. They teach you that in law school, and you got to see both sides, and both sides can be right and both sides can be wrong. And it's very easy to become very cold-hearted. And I have seen many judges who needed to retire long before they did because they become irritable, they become difficult, and they don't believe, the assumption is that you're innocent until proven guilty. Yeah. And sometimes that line gets skewed when you've been there for so long. And I've always said, if I don't enjoy what I do, if I get to the point where my heart is not open to work with children, and if I get to the point where it affects my Christian life and it affects my ability to be compassionate and it affects my ability to want to do it, it's like I say, I love what I do, but I don't like what I have to do sometimes. Yeah. If I didn't have Northside and I didn't have the ability to come sing in the choir, come sit and hear church. Go to my Sunday school class that I've missed from COVID, and I missed so much because Sunday revs me up to be able to get through that week.
Good.
Wednesday's choir allows me to kind of let go, and I'm just Christy, and I'm the alto.
Yeah.
And if I don't have that faith, I don't see how I wouldn't be still doing this.
Yeah.
And also, I think people see that in you.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference. And they also see it lacking in some people, and it makes a difference as to how effective they are in their role.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very careful not to let the job take over your heart.
Yeah.
And I'm very protective of my heart when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
Not that I always succeed in 24 years. Not that I haven't walked out and slammed the door when a child went home that I didn't want to and got hurt, things like that. But I would say that if you are in any leadership role, if you're not a Christian in that leadership role, your employees are very aware of what you do.
Yeah.
And the people that you lead and the people that you're in front of. So having that involvement has been, if you call it success, it's been the reason why I've been here as long as I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I said in 8 years, when I walk out, I want to be able to say, done everything I know to do. I think some people stay way too long. Let somebody else. We've got 2 new magistrates, Bill Milam and Jennifer Cavellas, attorneys. They're learning it. They're excited. First time stuff, I can remember. And I said, you got to hone those people, give them time to learn, and hope that somebody will provide something else for you. And then my hope is when I do that, then I'll be able to be more involved in the church, be more involved in things that I missed. Missed a lot of field trips with Claire that I regret. I missed a lot of things, but if I hadn't had that strong belief that I've had starting with my parents and then coming to this church, I don't believe I would still be sitting here today. I would have messed up royally.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I haven't messed up, but I would have messed up royally to the point where I would no longer be someone that people would vote for.
Sure.
And I must say, except for this time, I've had the most complimentary votes, which is always a big running thing with all the judges. Kind of a joke, because they're like, how do you do that? Well, because you're a female. And I'm like, because I wear lipstick. I think a lot of that has to do with just the fact that people still see you as trying and as a force to be reckoned with, but a force that's being uplifted because you do go to church and you are a Christian and you do things the way they would expect their child, and when I was younger, their daughter to handle things, or the way that they would expect a mother and a wife and a daughter and a sister to handle things.
Yeah.
So absolutely can't imagine being a non-Christian in a role of any kind of leadership at all.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and spending time with us. I know you've got to run, but hopefully we can do this again somewhere down the road.
Yeah, I'd love to
have you back.
We need to talk about like the fun, the singing and the...
Yeah, we got to get around to that.
I could do a little wee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
There we go. That'll be fun.
I'm on my way. Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us like the old stories from back in the day when y'all were traveling the famous life.
When I used to have to ride on top of all the equipment in the back without on the pig trail going to Eureka Springs. I don't know if y'all have ever done a gig in Eureka Springs, and the pig trail where you meet yourself, and I'd have to.
It is, yeah. I've been on that road.
Car sick, counting, and we counted armadillos, and they put me on dead armadillos, and they put me on the top of so we could all ride in one van, and I was on the top of all the equipment. So had we had a wreck, I kept telling Steve, because we had just gotten married, you're trying to kill me, because if this thing goes down, I'm gonna be the one that's crushed. So anyway, we need to do a whole gig. We need to get Steve here, and we need to do a thing on Bill Wade, the Delacortos, and I can have some fun.
That would be fun.
I like to have some fun. So I mean, I love music. I love music, any kind of music.
Cool.
So I think maybe that would be a fun little
I want to do that.
Cool thing. And the history of Steve's working with bands since he was a kid. I mean, he sucked his thumb and used to twirl his hair, and they said he went from that to holding a microphone.
There you go. Well, thank you again for coming in.
Absolutely,
I very
appreciate
informative,
this.
and we will get y'all back here another time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Phew.
This is the podcast where we speak the least. New record today.
We sit and we listen and try and take it all in. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant.
Yes. I love her energy.
Yeah, so much. And, I found myself, I don't know about you listening, but it's like, I want to jump in and help.
Yeah.
I want to come in and save these kids. But I think having been through the adoption process, we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I want to help rescue these kids or save these kids. And there's definitely a place for foster parents.
Yeah.
For adoptive parents.
Definitely.
But just understand it is not for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are plenty of other things you can do. If you're being called to do that, I'm not letting you off the hook, but there are plenty of other things you can do to help in this process.
Yes.
One of the big things we've keep coming back and back and back to is mental health. How and when does that conversation start to feel like we're turning the tide in our country?
Yeah.
At a local level, at a state level. I feel like years ago, even when I was growing up, when you talk about mental health or mental illness, I thought about like an insane asylum.
Yeah. Because, what we knew about it was from Bugs Bunny cartoons or something.
Right.
So
if you're crazy,
yeah,
quote unquote, whatever that really means, that was what I pictured.
Yeah.
But a mental illness can be everything from PTSD to autism is definitely become a big visible conversation, which it should be.
Yeah, and it's such a huge spectrum.
It should be.
Ginormous range.
What she was talking about in terms of how mental illness is perhaps the beginning of so many of these other behavior issues makes a lot of sense to me. But when there's such a lack of resources, and there's such a lack of focus on that from people going into those careers or support for people that do it, it really is kind of disheartening to me.
Yeah.
When the thing we need the most is the thing we have the least of.
Yeah. Living with Barbie, who's a special educator, it's been one of her largest laments is, even though they do great work with them in the schools, in the school systems and classrooms and stuff, so often there's nothing for them once they get older.
Right.
Once they try to go to the workforce, and not all of them have different options. And there's some who will never be able to work. They'll never be able to function like that. And what happens when their parents or their caregivers are gone?
That's right.
There aren't many places for them to be. There aren't many that are safe and really have that heart to make that happen. And that's on those hardcore cases and those bigger things. And there's a lot more to all of this. And she alluded to the fact that so many times that some of these things are hereditary. They're passed down.
Right.
And also a lot of times these people are preyed upon. And so children is a huge reality that comes out of that situation. And there's a lot going on. And we sure don't have all the answers. We know that God is active in there in all things.
Sure, yeah.
And does some things that we don't even have any knowledge of. But it is something I think that we all need to sit and pray and talk about and work towards and see how we can come along beside each and every individual and just walk with them.
Yeah.
And, that's what Jesus is really teaching us to do.
Yeah.
Love your neighbor. So,
and I think, like I said, there's plenty of ways we can get involved. She talked about some basic needs that are out there. And I don't know of anybody that can't potentially purchase a blanket.
Yeah.
Or help with something in regards to that. I understand there are some times when we just can't do it month to month. It just doesn't work out. But my point is there's plenty of other things to do. We don't have to all go out and adopt kids. We don't have to all build a summer home, those kinds of things. And so the challenge I have for myself and for everybody listening is how are we going to do something about it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's one thing to hear it and to be open to hear it and to, kind of share the lament, as you said, but what are we going to do about it? Yeah. How are we going to take some action? Because one of the things that, I think about when I think about the example of Jesus is he was a man of action.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so if we're using him as our ultimate human example, how are we getting involved in things?
Yeah.
We may not feel like we may be like the widow who can't give much, but what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so that's a challenge for me. And I issue that challenge to everybody else. We'll keep talking about mental health. I know we will.
There's just no way around
at this stage. But fascinating interview.
Yeah. And another thing that just really poked out to me super quick is I just forget and don't even think about very often. We're called the Hub City. I've heard the Golden Circle. I've heard all these different things.
Right.
West Tennessee relies on Jackson, Tennessee and Madison County way greater than we think. We just get upset because Van Drive is busy and feeling whatever.
The Chick-fil-A, we can't get in and out.
We can't get in and out. We can't go where we want to go as quickly. And we're like, these people come from out of state, or from out of county. And but they're probably maybe here for a doctor's appointment or one of those appointments. And, they want Chick-fil-A too, because they don't have it where there's 100 people in their community.
Right.
And
totally.
So it's a reminder for us of how important our place is here. And being involved in our community and being involved in our church and in our world and area is just really, really important. So glad that she came and visited with us.
Oh, yeah.
We've been sharing a lot of the events that are coming up. And today, let's just leave today encouraging you to say a little prayer right now, wherever you're at listening to this. And Northside is not the facility and the programs we do. It's all of us.
That's right.
So Northside, what are you going to do now?
Well, guys, thanks for podcasting with me. And thanks to all of you out there in the world for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Northside Now Podcast. Go to our website, northsidejackson.com, or email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. We hope to hear from you soon. Once again, this is Kevin.
This is Glenn.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.